The stars outside the restaurant windows sparkled like diamonds in space. Derek leaned back in his chair, tired from weeks of travel through alien systems. His boots were dusty, his coat worn, and his stomach growling like a wild beast. He had landed on the luxury pleasure station Veltrax's Prime, known for strange food, strong drinks, and weirder traditions. He just wanted one thing tonight, a good, rare steak. The waiter, tall, insect-like creature with glowing yellow eyes, handed him a thin metal menu tablet. The letters twisted and shimmered between languages. Derek tapped the auto-translate button. The screen buzzed, then flickered into English. Welcome to Flesh and Flame, home of the freshest delicacies in the sector. Choose your cut. Blue-blooded tail roast, seared tongue of Rillock, beast rarest steak. He tapped the option. A soft tone rang from the tablet. The waiter looked at him for a long second, his face unreadable. Then, without a word, the creature bowed and glided away into the shadows of the kitchen. Derek leaned forward. Weird staff, he mumbled. The restaurant was dim, with flickering red lights and holographic flames dancing across the ceiling. Other diners, alien nobles, and wealthy merchants spoke in quiet tones around him, watching with curiosity. A few minutes later, 2 large guards entered from a side door. They weren't carrying a plate. They were escorting a girl. Derek froze. She looked young, maybe his age, or a little younger, with pale silver skin, glowing blue eyes, and soft violet hair falling over her shoulders. Her arms were tied with golden cuffs. A thin sheet of translucent fabric barely covered her body. She stumbled as they pushed her forward, her eyes locked with Derek's. She was terrified. This isn't funny, Derek said, rising to his feet. The waiter returned. Now, carrying a silver carving knife and a set of sharp tools, he placed them gently on the table. The rarest steak alive, he said in a calm, monotone voice, as requested. Derek stared at the girl, who now stood trembling beside the table. The guards stood behind her like statues. She's alive. Derek said slowly, I thought this was a steak, a meat cut, not a person. The waiter tilted his head. She is the freshest flesh we offer, bred for consumption. Served moments before processing for optimal warmth and ... sensation. Derek's heart pounded. No, I'm not doing this. It is dishonorable to waste the chef's offering, the waiter replied. You made the sacred selection. The room grew quiet. Everyone stared at him now. Some looked amused, others annoyed. If you hungry, you expect me to eat her? Derek asked in disbelief. She is yours to taste. Slice or enjoy in other ways, the waiter replied.
Ow.
All acceptable customs in this house? The alien girl's lip quivered, but she didn't speak. Her eyes never left Derek's face. He took a step back. No, I didn't agree to this sick. The guards moved forward slightly. Then the girl did something unexpected. She dropped to her knees and whispered softly, Please, don't let them cut me. I don't want to die here. Derek's breath caught. She wasn't mindless. She wasn't a creature bred in a lab. She was real, intelligent, aware, and she was begging him. What's your name? Derek asked quietly, kneeling in front of her. Ara, she stammered. They said if someone refused me, ... they'd throw me into the grinder. Alive. Derek looked around. Every face in the room waited for his next move. Some grinned, enjoying his discomfort. A few licked their lips. He stood up slowly and looked. At the knife on the table, then he looked back at Raya. Not tonight, he said in a cold voice. And not her. The waiter raised an eyebrow. Before Derek could answer, one of the guards lunged toward him. But Derek had already seen it coming. He flipped the knife from the table into his hand, ducked under the guard's swing, and slammed the hilt into the alien's jaw. The other guard reached for Raya, but Derek tackled him into a pillar. Raya screamed. The entire room exploded into chaos. Tables flipped. Screams echoed, and Derek grabbed Raya's hand. Run, I shouted, and together they disappeared into the dark halls behind. The kitchen with every hunter on Veltrax's prime ready to claim the meat he just stole. The kitchen doors slammed behind them. Derek and Raya ran through a narrow metal hallway filled with hanging animal parts. Steam hissed from broken vents, and the sharp smell of raw meat filled the air. Raya was barefoot, shivering. Derek didn't slow down. His heart beat like a drum. He had no plan. And only one goal: get her out, alive. Where are we going? Raya gasped. Anywhere but that dining room, he said. Do you know a way out? Raya hesitated. Maybe through the waste chutes. But it's dirty, dangerous, better dirty than dead. Behind them, a siren began to wail. The walls lit up red. A robotic voice echoed overhead, code red, flesh bond violation. Subject number 813, I is missing. Initiate capture. Derek cursed under his breath. They've tagged you. She nodded. Collar under my skin, left shoulder. Without warning, Derek pulled out the sharp carving knife he had stolen earlier. Raya flinched. I'm not going to hurt you, he said gently. Hold still. He sliced her skin carefully, just deep enough to reveal a tiny glowing chip near her collarbone. Ah. Raya bit her lip, but didn't cry. Derek yanked the tracker free and crushed it under his boot. Done, he said. Now let's move. They found a steel door marked Bio Refuse. Derek forced it open. The stench inside hit them like a wall. It was a tunnel narrow, wet and dripping with blood and slime. Raya covered her nose. This leads to the waste ships. They dump leftovers into orbit. And you're sure this is better than being eaten alive? Derek joked grimly. Raya gave him a weak smile. I'll take my chances with space. They crawled through the tunnel, slipping on old bones and grease. But after 10 minutes of crawling, the pipe shook. Something behind them clanked metal claws on steel. A mech unit, fast and hunting. Derek looked back. Keep crawling. The chase was on. They reached the end of the pipe. A hatch blocked their exit. Derek kicked it, but it didn't budge. Locked. He yelled. Behind them, the mech's red eyes appeared. It ducked into the tunnel, slicing with spinning blades. Raya suddenly pulled a loose wire from the pipe wall and jabbed it into the lock. Sparks flew in. The hatch hissed open. They fell out. Onto a cold metal platform near the docking bays. A small cargo ship stood nearby, its door half open. No guards, no signs, just luck. Or a trap. We can take it, Derek said, pulling Raya toward the ramp. But a voice stopped them. You do realize what she is, right? A tall alien in a black coat stepped out of the shadows.
Oh.
His skin was smooth, like stone, and his eyes glowed silver. Raya gasped. That's a flesh broker. The alien smiled. That's right. I'm the one who raised her. You just stole my most expensive dish. Derek stepped in front of Raya. She's not food. To you, maybe? But to others? The broker held up a device, showing an image of Raya on auction. She was bred not just to be eaten, but to feel it. Her nerves were enhanced, her emotions tuned. The more she fears, the better the flavor. You're insane, Derek growled. No, human, I'm rich. Suddenly more guards appeared behind the broker. They were surrounded again. Derek had no gun, no ship, no plan. But then Raya stepped forward. Wait, she whispered. Let me show him. Derek turned. What are you doing? Raya placed a hand on the broker's chest. For a second, nothing happened. Then the man screamed. His skin bubbled and cracked. He fell to his knees, clutching his face. Raya looked at Derek with glowing eyes. I'm not just some meat, she said softly. They bred me with more than nerves. I was born to adapt. My body reacts to fear, but not just mine. The guards froze and then ran with the dock now clear. Derek and Raya rushed into the cargo ship as the doors closed behind them. Derek caught his breath. Remind me never to order steak again. Raya laughed for the first time. Next time. Maybe just a salad. The engines roared, and the ship launched into the stars to fugitives, escaping a world that treated life like dinner. But they both knew this was just the beginning. Stars stretched like white rivers as the ship jumped to light speed. Derek sat in the pilot's seat, panting. His hands shook from adrenaline. Raya sat behind him, wrapped in an old blanket, her silver skin still sticky with dried blood. They had escaped, but they weren't safe. Where does this ship go? Raya asked quietly. No idea, Derek said. Autonav was already set. I just hit launch. Raya looked out the small window. Wherever it is, it's better than the plate. Derek gave her a sideways glance. That thing you did to the flesh broker? How? She hesitated, gripping the blanket tighter. It's part of why I was bred. They called me an experience cut, not just for taste, but for reaction. My body creates a neurofeedback shock when I touch someone with harmful intent. Like a defense system? She nodded. They didn't want me too easy. To kill. Fear improves flavor, but pain makes the meat tense. So, they made me dangerous. Derek rubbed his face. They made you into a weapon. No, a product. He frowned. That ends now. But then something pinged on the control panel. Priority alert. The ship was being scanned. Federation beacon detected, the voice said. Derek stood up fast. That's not good. Why? Raya asked. Because this isn't a normal ship. It's a meat hauler, and that beacon, it belongs to Customs Patrol. They scan for illegal biocargo. You're not listed as a person, you're listed as inventory. If they find you, I'll be processed, she whispered. Derek's mind raced. They had 1 minute before the patrol latched on. Hide in the wall panel, he ordered. Now, Raya crawled into a narrow maintenance space behind a broken refrigeration unit. Derek sealed it, just as a bright blue beam locked onto the ship and forced it from warp. A Federation patrol ship appeared, a cold silver arrow, armed and UNMOV. In G. The radio crackled. Freighter E97, prepare for inspection. Step away from control systems. Derek lifted his hands. Copy that. Preparing for boarding. Moments later, a robot inspector floated into the cockpit. Its long arms glowed as it scanned every inch of the ship. It hovered toward the storage room. Derek's heart pounded if it found her. She wouldn't get a second chance. But then the scanner paused. Error. Temperature anomaly in secondary refrigeration compartment. Derek forced a cough. Yeah, I stored some decomposing fish there. Weird planet. High bacteria count. It's disgusting. The robot whirred. Recommend jettison of rotting cargo at next station. No illegal life forms detected. Continue journey. Floated back out. A minute later, the patrol ship detached and vanished into the stars. The silence returned. Derek waited until the alert faded. Then he rushed to open the wall panel. Raya stumbled out, gasping for air. I thought I'd die in there, she said, collapsing into his arms. You were amazing, he whispered. Later, as they sat near the engine heater, Derek handed her a bottle of water and a protein bar. You really don't know where you're from? He asked. I was born in a lab, Raya said softly. Grown from mixed DNA, they used human strands. That's why I look familiar. He blinked. Human DNA. Yes, they said humans have unique traits. Resistance, passion, adaptability. I'm the only surviving test. Derek stared at her. Do you know what that means? He said slowly. You're not just a victim. Ash! You're a miracle. You could be the key to the future. Raya looked down. I never thought of it that way. I was always just meat. Not anymore, Derek said, placing a hand on hers. You're the most valuable person in this part of the galaxy. Suddenly, the ship's lights flickered. Message flashed on the screen. Incoming transmission. Private bounty alert. Target, female hybrid live capture 500,000 credits. Derek's face went pale. Someone just placed a 500,000 credit bounty for you. Raya's eyes widened in horror. They're coming, she whispered. Derek stood slowly, then let them come. Derek adjusted the hood over Raya's head as they walked through the crowded alien bazaar. The spaceport was loud, dirty, and crawling with merchants, thieves, and spies. If any place in the galaxy had answers or help, it was here, or it was a trap. Raya walked close beside him, hiding her glowing blue eyes and silver skin under old cargo robes. Her steps were unsure, her body weak from days of travel. She was the galaxy's most hunted hybridond. Derek knew they couldn't run forever. "We need to find someone who can erase your genetic ID," he whispered. "Change your bioscent. Maybe even your blood marker. Is that even possible?" she asked softly. "Not legally," Derek said. "But this place doesn't believe in laws." They passed strange stalls selling alien organs in bubbling jars, living eyeballs on skewers and fresh limbs on discount. Tall vendor shouted, "Half price on twitching tongues." Raya flinched and looked away. Derek touched her shoulder gently. "Just keep walking. We're almost there." At the far end of the bazaar was a shadowed building with no signboard, just a glowing red handprint on a steel door. Derek placed his hand on it. The door opened slowly. Inside was a dim room filled with soft lights, thick smoke, and whispering. Machines. At the center sat a heavy-set alien woman with long wires instead of hair. She wore a coat made from stitched-together skins. "Human," she said, blinking. "You look desperate. Or stupid." "Maybe both," Derek replied. "I need an ID wipe for her." Raya removed her hood slightly, just enough to show her silver cheek. The alien woman leaned forward, then smiled. "You brought me a legend," she purred. "I've heard of this one. Born in vats, fed in gold bowls, meant to be served raw. Half human, half everything else. She's not for sale," Derek growled. "Of course not," the woman said sweetly. "But I can still help." "For a price." "What kind of price?" "Something simple. Let her walk through the auction once. Let the buyers see her. Just see. No touch, no chains. She stays yours, but I get the crowd." Derek stared at her. "You want to show her off like some animal?" "No," she grinned. "Like fire to moths. Let them come. Let them bid. Let them reveal themselves. Then erase her ID and vanish her from their radar forever." Raya touched Derek's hand. "It's okay. If it helps, I'll do it." He looked at her uncertain, angry, but also proud. "Fine," he said. "One show. Then you wipe her clean." That night, the hidden flesh market opened. Behind curtains of smoke and gold chains, the galaxy's richest monsters gathered. Derek watched from a dark corner, nerves tight, hand gripping his concealed blaster. And then Raya stepped onto the stage. She wore no chains, no collar. It's just a simple black dress that left her shoulders bare. Her hair flowed down, glowing softly under the lights. But it wasn't her body that made the crowd fall silent. It was her eyes. Eyes that didn't beg. Eyes that dared. Whispers spread like fire. That's her. The hybrid. She's still alive? Impossible. She escaped the feast. Voice shouted from the shadows. 10,000 credits. Another bellowed, 50,000. Raya's lip curled. "I am not for sale." The room laughed. "She speaks. Add 20,000 for the voice. Add 50 for defiance." But then one bidder stood. A tall alien wearing a mask of bone. His voice was low. 500,000 right now. "Delivered alive to my ship." The crowd fell silent. Derek froze. That was the bounty amount. The man wasn't bidding. He was claiming. Suddenly, the masked alien raised a weapon and fired into the air. "Seize her. Galactic code. She's a legal biocargo. She belongs." To the collector guards burst in. Crowd scattered. Raya ran. Derek fired, hitting 2 guards, and grabbed Raya by the hand. They bolted through velvet curtains. Through the back, through smoke and wires. "I trusted you." Derek shouted at the alien woman as they passed her. She just smiled. "You brought fire into a room full of wolves. Human, don't cry when it burns." Outside, alarms rang across the bazaar. Derek and Raya ducked into a meat truck, hiding under slabs of fake muscle. "I'm sorry," Raya said, breathing hard. "I wanted to help, you did," Derek said. "Now I know who's after you. That bounty hunter. He's not after money. He's after your bloodline." Raya looked up at him. "Why?" "Because your blood isn't just rare," Derek whispered. "It's unstoppable. You're not just a hybrid. You're a key to the next evolution. And someone out there wants to own, it'll end it. The truck rumbled forward, carrying them into darkness, and into even greater danger. The truck finally stopped. Derek peeked out from under the fake muscle slabs. The meat hauler had arrived at the edge of a massive desert scrapyard, abandoned ships buried in sand. Twisted engines like skeletons under moonlight, perfect place. To disappear, they slipped out silently. The air was dry and hot, the wind carrying the sharp scent of rust and oil. Raya walked slowly beside him, still shaken from the auction betrayal. "Do you trust me?" Derek asked. Raya gave a soft nod. "I did, and I still do." "Then we're finding answers now," he said, deep within the scrapyard. Derek guided Raya to an old science vessel half buried in the sand. Its name was barely visible. Project Genesis. "Where are we?" she asked. "This," Derek said. Pulling open the cracked door was one of the labs where hybrid programs were secretly tested. "I found this place on a mercenary database years ago, flagged as sealed due to ethics violations. Thought it was just rumors, until I met you." Inside, dust and silence filled the empty halls. Broken glass crunched under their feet. Derek powered up the emergency generator just enough to get lights flickering. They walked into a cold chamber with dozens of suspended pods. Most were shattered. Others still had bones or dried-up tissue inside. One pod glowed faintly. Raya stepped closer. It had her face. "You were cloned," Derek whispered. "No," she said. "I was." Selected a screen lit up behind the pod. Old logs played. Voice log lab entry, 191 hybrid subject number 81. Shows full neural response to human empathy exposure. She adapts faster, thinks deeper, and feels stronger than any other specimen. Her blood shows potential for cross-species gene dominance. She's the only one who smiled when we touched her. The log ended. Raya backed away. "I'm not a person," she whispered. "I'm just a test that didn't fail." "No," Derek said, stepping in front of her. "You smiled. They noticed because it was real. It's what makes you more than their machines." But Raya's eyes glowed slightly. "Then why do I feel something?" Strange now, her hands trembled. Her skin shimmered with faint heat. Derek saw something under her collar, a faint blue line pulsing along her neck, like a vein filled with light. Suddenly, alarms in the lab activated. A hidden system had detected her. Hybrid core function engaged. Breeding mode initiated. "What does that mean?" Derek asked. Raya clutched her chest. "I don't know, it's burning. Like something woke up inside me." The lab's AI voice returned. "Subject number 81 has reached prime phase. Compatible human specimen detected. Begin imprint sequence." Derek looked around in horror. Imprint? On who? The answer was obvious. Him. Suddenly, the broken door behind them exploded open. The masked bounty hunter stepped through the smoke. This time, didn't speak. He simply raised his weapon and fired. Derek tackled Raya behind a steel table. Just in time, sparks flew. The bounty hunter walked calmly forward. "I've studied every phase of your development," he said coldly. "Your blood can create armies immune to disease. Your DNA can repair itself mid-battle. You were designed to make the perfect heir." Raya gasped. "I don't want to create anything for monsters like you." He tilted his head. "Then you'll die and I'll use your organs. Either way, your body serves its purpose." Raya's hands glowed brighter. Derek saw her skin, cracking, not bleeding, but releasing energy. "You're changing," he said. "I'm scared," she whispered. "Then use it." Raya stood. The room went silent. Her body shimmered, as if made of starlight. Her eyes turned pure white. The bounty hunter hesitated, but it was too late. A shockwave of light burst from her chest. The glass shattered. The lab howled, and the bounty hunter screamed as his armor peeled off, his mask melting, his gun turning to dust. He collapsed to the floor alive. But frozen in fear, Raya collapsed too, falling into Derek's arms, her glow fading. He held her close. "You saved us." Tears slid down her cheeks. "Then why do I feel like I'm losing control?" Derek looked down. Her pulse wasn't human anymore, and they were out of time. Derek stared into the night sky from the broken roof of the old lab. Stars blinked above like quiet watchers. Raya lay beside him, resting, her silver skin still dimly glowing with soft pulses of light like a heartbeat shared with the galaxy. She hadn't spoken since the energy burst. Her body was calm, but her mind seemed somewhere else. He gently tucked the blanket around her shoulders. "You with me?" Raya opened her eyes slowly. "I hear something." Derek leaned closer. "What kind of something? A voice?" "No, a rhythm. A pulse, deep in space. It's calling to me, pulling me." "You mean a transmission?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, it's older. It's not made with machines. It feels like it's coming from inside the stars themselves." Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled. Derek jumped up, blaster ready. The broken computers flickered to life again, but this time they displayed something strange. A star map. One red dot blinked in the far corner outside any charted zone. "Location unknown." The screen read. Then a message appeared. "Core hybrid phase 3 final signal initiated, all remaining seeds awakening." Derek looked down at Raya. "What does this mean?" She looked terrified. "I'm not the only one." Hours later, they took off in a stolen scout ship from the scrapyard. Raya sat quietly beside Derek, watching the screen as it showed their trajectory heading straight toward the blinking red dot. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I thought I was a failed experiment." "You were the first to escape," Derek said. "That doesn't mean you were the only one. What happens when I get there?" Derek looked her in the eyes. "We find out together." As they crossed deep space, something strange began to happen. Raya stopped eating. She stopped blinking. Her skin stopped glowing. Instead, her eyes turned pitch black, filled with stars. And she started speaking in whispers, not to Derek, but to something invisible. "They're singing back now," she said softly. "Who is?" Derek asked. "The others? They're waking up, like me, and they remember things I don't." That night she stood by the viewport for hours, unmoving, and then her body jerked. She collapsed. Derek caught her, but she didn't respond. Her skin flickered with symbols and sentient runes spinning across her arms and chest like a living map. Derek scanned them with the ship's translator. "The seed shall return to the root. The flesh shall bind the sky. The hybrid is the lockhand. The human is the key." Derek's blood ran cold. He wasn't just protecting her. He was part of something, and someone had known it long before they met. 3 days later, they reached the location. There was no planet, no station, just a black void in the middle of the stars. Empty, silent, but Raya stepped forward and said clearly, "This is it." The ship's sensors suddenly went dead. Lights flickered. Derek tried to reboot. Nothing worked. Then space itself opened. A massive stone ring appeared from nothing, floating in the void, ancient and covered in glowing script. At its center, a single doorway opened. A voice echoed through the ship, not in sound, but in emotion. "Return the first one." Raya stood. "I have to go through," she said. Derek grabbed her arm. "No, not alone." She touched his hand. "I think I was never meant to live. I was meant to be delivered." "To what?" Derek asked. "Some ancient machine? Some alien god?" "To whatever made me. Maybe it needs me back. To finish something." Derek shook his head. "You're not just a piece of a puzzle. You're a person. You deserve to choose your life." Raya looked at him. For the first time in days, she smiled. "I choose this." She took his hand. Together, they floated through the doorway. What waited on the other side wasn't death. It was memory, an entire civilization long dead whose last hope had been to create hybrids. Children who could carry memory not in mind but in blood. Raya wasn't made in a lab. She had been grown from a seed planted millions of years ago, waiting for the galaxy to evolve far enough to bring her home. And Derek, he wasn't random. His blood, his humanity, was the final missing key, Their bond wasn't just emotion, it was design, and something had awakened. The void closed. The ship was gone. But in the distance, a new star began to glow. A new species had been born, and the galaxy would never be the same again. 50 years later, children gathered under the twin moons of a quiet forest world. Their eyes were bright, their ears pointed, their skin shimmering silver with human freckles. They sat cross-legged around the village fire as the old storyteller began. "You all know the tale," he whispered, "but tonight I'll tell you how it really ended." Back then, the galaxies still believed in King's credits, control. And when Derek and Raya vanished into the void beyond stars, most assumed they died, but strange things began to happen. The bounty network that had hunted hybrids for centuries collapsed. Overnight, powerful empires fell without war, without reason. And then, new voices began to appear across the systems. Children with eyes that glowed like starlight and hearts that beat in sync with distant rhythms. They were neither human nor alien, but something more. Hybrids, not bred-born, in that space beyond. Space, Derek and Raya had not died. They had been transformed. Inside the ancient construct, time bent. Days became decades. Derek felt his body strengthened, his mind sharpened, but he never aged. Raya stood at the center of the chamber, no longer afraid. The star song inside her had grown louder, clearer. She now knew what she truly was, the first. Flame, her body was the last seed of a vanished race that had once ruled through peace, not power. A race that had died out because they could not evolve fast enough to survive the dark tides of war. So they created her part memory, part hope. And she chose Derek to light the future with her. Together they awoke the old star forges, where DNA was no longer made, but sung into life, on the outer edges of known space. The first hybrid colony bloomed, built not with machines, but with living metal. Grown from Raya's own pulse, the galaxy panicked. New fleets were sent to destroy what they didn't understand, but none returned, because the hybrids did not fight with weapons. They fought with truth. In a council chamber of Earth, decades later, old generals whispered of a legend that a human man and an alien, a girl, had become guardians of something far greater than war, and across alien worlds. Scared children with glowing skin were taught not to fear who they were, but to seek the stars. Where the first flame once walked, no one had seen them in years. Until one day, a black ring reappeared in the sky above a forgotten moon, and from it stepped a man with silver-streaked hair and fire. Behind his eyes, he said nothing, but every scanner failed, every weapon jammed, and the people fell silent. Because behind him walked a woman whose presence bent gravity, whose steps hummed with creation or why, and together they planted the last flame, a living crystal grown from both their blood, designed to awaken across galaxies, wherever the broken lived. And remind them, you were not made to be consumed. You were not born to be controlled. You are not a product. You are the future. Back at the fire, the old storyteller smiled, and that, children, is why you are here. Why your hearts burn stronger than any warriors, and why your tears can heal even steel. One child raised a hand. Do you think they're still out there? The old man's smile grew wider. I know they are. He looked up at the stars, and one blinked just for a moment brighter than the rest.